The morning sun barely touched the horizon when a sudden commotion erupted near the edge of the pasture. A wild horse, sleek and chestnut-brown with a flowing mane, had broken free from the corral, its hooves thundering against the packed earth. Dust rose in clouds around him as he bolted, eyes wide and muscles coiled with energy, moving with a speed and purpose that startled everyone who caught sight of him. Those who had been working the fields paused mid-task, hands frozen on tools, eyes following the animal as it disappeared into the rolling hills beyond. There was a sense of urgency in the air, a feeling that something remarkable was about to unfold. The ranch hands, farmers, and neighbors who had gathered nearby instinctively gave chase. Not out of fear, but out of curiosity. They ran, stumbling over roots and rocks, calling to one another as they tried to keep the horse in sight. The animal seemed to know the land better than anyone, weaving through thickets, jumping over fallen logs, and skirting streams with ease. Each leap and bound drew the onlookers further from the familiar paths of their everyday lives, deeper into a part of the land that few had ventured. Whispers of wonder and apprehension ran through the group. What was this horse leading them to? And why did it seem so urgent, so purposeful? Among those following, the rancher who had first noticed the horse stood out. He had worked this land for decades, his hands calloused from years of tending livestock and clearing pastures, yet even he found himself momentarily breathless as he tried to keep pace. Something about the horse's movements suggested more than a simple flight of fear. There was intelligence in the way it navigated obstacles, a silent guidance that seemed almost intentional. The rancher's heart pounded, not just from exertion, but from the sense that he was on the edge of witnessing something extraordinary, something that would change the ordinary routines of the land forever. As the group pressed on, the terrain began to shift. The gentle pastures gave way to rolling hills dotted with groves of wild trees, and patches of undergrowth thickened, forcing the followers to move carefully. The horse never slowed, yet neither did it vanish from sight. Occasionally it paused at a rise or a clearing, ears twitching, nostrils flaring, as if checking to make sure it was still being followed. Every time it stopped, a wave of anticipation ran through the group. Something lay ahead, something that had drawn the horse this far from its familiar territory. Each person felt it in their chest, the pull of the unknown, the promise of discovery just over the next hill. Rumors began to circulate among the followers. Some suggested the horse might be leading them to water, or perhaps to a hidden herd, while others imagined treasures long buried or secrets of the land that no one had yet uncovered. But even as speculation ran wild, the horse's purposeful stride kept everyone grounded in reality. The old animal moved with a grace that belied its strength, a silent conductor, orchestrating a journey that seemed designed to reveal itself only when the right moment arrived. The suspense was nearly tangible, the air thick with expectation as the group drew closer to the place the horse intended them to see. As the sun climbed higher, casting golden light across the hills, the followers finally approached a clearing unlike any they had encountered before. Trees, twisted by wind and time, framed a wide expanse where the grass grew thick and green, untouched and vibrant. Flowers of wild colors dotted the ground, and a small stream meandered through the center, sparkling in the sunlight. The group stopped, catching their breath, eyes wide as they took in the sight. Even the rancher, who had seen much of the land's rugged beauty over the years, felt a surge of awe. This place seemed almost hidden from the world, a natural sanctuary that had remained untouched by the routine of human labor and the wear of passing seasons. Yet, amidst the beauty, there was something more, a sense that the land itself had a story to tell, a mystery that had waited for the right moment and the right eyes to uncover it. The horse stood at the edge of the clearing, nostrils flaring as it sniffed the air, ears rotating to catch distant sounds. It was calm now, its earlier energy transformed into a quiet vigilance. The followers, sensing the change, gathered cautiously, aware that they were witnesses to a moment of significance. Each person felt a mix of relief and heightened curiosity. The chase had ended, but the real discovery, the revelation the horse had been leading them toward, had not yet unfolded. The rancher stepped forward, moving closer to the horse, and noticed subtle details that had been easy to miss before. The way the animal's hooves rested carefully on the ground, The tension in its muscles and the way it seemed to direct attention toward certain features of the clearing. He followed its gaze and spotted what others had not yet noticed, the remnants of a structure hidden behind a cluster of trees, partially collapsed and covered in moss and vines. It looked as though it had been there for decades, untouched by human hands. The revelation sent a shiver down his spine. This was not merely a beautiful clearing. It was a place with history, a secret waiting to be understood. The group edged closer, curiosity overcoming hesitation. The horse remained calm, almost expectant, as though urging the followers to witness what lay hidden. Whispers filled the air, questions about who might have built the structure, why it had been abandoned, and what it could mean for the land they all thought they knew. Each step toward the moss-covered walls revealed more, hints of stone foundations, fragments of wood carved with care, and the faint outline of a doorway that had once welcomed life. The rancher's imagination raced, piecing together stories from scattered clues, while the horse watched patiently, its eyes reflecting knowledge that seemed almost human in its depth. As the followers gathered at the edge of the clearing, the rancher noticed a pattern in the landscape's subtle mounds, depressions and pathways that hinted at more than just a random wilderness. The land had been shaped with intention, hidden in plain sight, waiting for someone or something to guide others to it. The horse had done that. Its instincts, honed over years of experience, had led them to a place that bridged the present with a past that few had known. The sense of anticipation grew with each passing moment. Everyone could feel it. The revelation was imminent, and the story of the land was about to unfold before their eyes. Then, as if on cue, the horse moved to the center of the clearing and stamped the ground once. The sound echoed across the hills, drawing the attention of the followers and compelling them to focus on a section of the clearing they had previously overlooked. There, partially hidden by foliage, lay objects that suggested life had once thrived here, tools, fragments of fabric, and the faint remains of structures that hinted at domestic activity long ago. The followers gasped, realizing that the clearing was more than a natural sanctuary. It had been a home, a place of work, and perhaps even of stories left untold. The horse had led them not merely to a beautiful scene, but to a revelation, a secret preserved in the quiet embrace of the land itself. A hush fell over the group. No one spoke, for words could not capture the magnitude of the discovery. The rancher felt his heart beat in his chest, matching the rhythm of the horse's steady breathing. The foal, who had followed the horse closely, nuzzled against him, sensing the importance of the moment. Every person in the clearing felt it, the connection between past and present, the hidden story waiting to be understood, and the silent guidance that had brought them all here. The horse had unlocked a secret of the land, and now it was up to the humans to follow its lead and uncover the full story. As the sun rose higher, casting long shadows across the clearing, the sense of anticipation became almost unbearable. The followers knew that the revelation they had glimpsed was only the beginning. There were answers to be found, histories to be pieced together, and mysteries to unravel. The horse had delivered them to the threshold of something remarkable, but the full scope of the secret was still hidden. Every rustle of leaves, every flicker of movement in the trees, and every glint of sunlight across the clearing suggested that the land held more to reveal, and that the story of this wild horse and the secret it had uncovered was far from over. The rancher looked at the horse, understanding for the first time that this animal was not merely wild, but wise in a way that bridged instinct and knowledge. The chase had been the prelude, the clearing the stage, and now the moment of discovery loomed, filled with possibilities that none could yet predict. The followers, hearts pounding and eyes wide, stood in silence, waiting for the next move, aware that they were on the cusp of witnessing something extraordinary, a story shaped by the land, the horse, and the careful unfolding of secrets that had waited patiently for the right time to be revealed. The clearing remained quiet after the initial gasp of the followers, but the sense of mystery hung in the air, heavier than the morning mist. The rancher studied the scene carefully, noting how the remnants of the old structure had weathered decades of wind, rain, and neglect. The stones were smooth, their edges rounded by time, and the wood, though weakened, still hinted at careful craftsmanship. Every detail suggested that this had once been more than a simple shelter. It had been a place of purpose, built by hands that had clearly known the land intimately. He ran his fingers along a carved beam, feeling the grooves worn smooth over the years, imagining the people who had shaped this place and the lives they had lived in connection with the land. The horse shifted slightly, stepping toward a patch of ground near the stream, its nostrils flaring as if sensing something buried or hidden. The rancher followed, noting the way the animal's eyes flicked back toward him with what seemed like insistence. It was as though the horse was saying, "Look closer." He knelt and brushed away dirt and leaves, revealing a small wooden box, half buried in the soft soil. The box was simple, unadorned, but its presence felt deliberate, a careful placement by someone who wanted it to be found someday. His hands trembled slightly as he lifted it, careful not to disturb whatever secrets it might hold. The followers gathered around, curiosity evident on every face. "What do you think's inside?" one of them whispered. No one answered. There was a tension in the air, a shared feeling that whatever lay in the box might change their understanding of the land entirely. The rancher opened it slowly, revealing a bundle of papers, folded carefully as though the person who had left them had anticipated the passage of time. Maps, letters, and sketches spilled into his hands, and he began to sort through them. The pages were yellowed, edges brittle, but the ink was surprisingly clear. Every mark told a story, charts of the hills and streams, notes on plant life, and references to a network of paths and hideaways that ran throughout the hills. It became clear that the clearing had not simply been abandoned. It had been preserved, maintained in secrecy, perhaps even protected by generations of animals that had learned to move through the land without disturbing it. The horse, the rancher realized, was connected to that history in ways he could not yet fully understand. Each gesture, each step seemed purposeful. The animal led them not just to beauty but to information details about the land's topography, water sources, and hidden resources that no map or human memory had preserved. Every follower leaned in closer, trying to make sense of the intricate lines and symbols, their earlier excitement tempered now by a quiet awe. The letters added another layer to the mystery. Written in careful, looping handwriting, they spoke of lives spent in harmony with the land, of people who had understood the importance of observation, patience, and quiet stewardship. They described the wild horses that roamed the hills, suggesting that the animals themselves had been trusted guardians of the land, guiding humans when the time was right. The rancher's breath caught as he read, realizing that the horse he followed that morning was not random or ordinary. It was part of a lineage, a living link to a time when humans and animals worked together in a delicate balance, each respecting the other's knowledge and instincts. As the day progressed, the followers began to explore the surrounding area, guided by both the maps and the horse's movements. They discovered small clearings, hidden streams, and unusual rock formations that aligned with the sketches in the papers. Some areas had small marker stones stacked in subtle patterns that might have served as signals or directions. Every discovery confirmed that someone had understood this landscape on a level that few modern eyes could appreciate. And every step, every new corner explored, increased the sense of anticipation. The clearing had been the first hint of something far larger, a network of secrets woven into the land itself. The horse, patient and alert, continued to move with a purpose that none of the humans could fully predict. At times it paused, nostrils quivering, ears pricked forward, guiding attention to places that otherwise seemed ordinary. The rancher noticed that some of the most promising hints were near the stream that cut through the clearing, small springs that bubbled up from the earth, and patches of soil that were remarkably fertile. He knelt at each spot, brushing aside leaves and debris, finding fragments of old tools, worn wooden stakes, and even remnants of enclosures that hinted at past use. The place had once been alive with activity, and though decades had passed, the land itself seemed to remember. Rumors among the followers began to spread as they pieced together clues. Some believed there might be hidden food stores, old barns, or even livestock long left behind. Others thought the horse might be leading them to a place of spiritual or historical significance, a hidden shrine or settlement long forgotten. But the rancher, studying both the land and the horse, had a different thought. This was not about treasure or spectacle. This was about understanding, about learning from the patterns and lessons embedded in the land itself. The horse was a teacher, and they were all students, brought here to witness what patience, knowledge, and respect for nature could create. By late afternoon, the group had reached a series of low hills that formed a natural boundary around the clearing. The horse paused at the top, looking out across the rolling terrain, and the rancher followed its gaze. In the distance, partially hidden by a line of trees, was another structure larger and more intact than the one in the clearing. Its roof had partially collapsed, but the walls stood strong, hinting at a purpose beyond simple shelter. The maps in the box seemed to confirm its significance, marking it with symbols that suggested careful planning and design. The discovery made the group catch their breath. The horse had led them to something that had survived the test of time, preserved through secrecy and perhaps through its own watchful presence. As evening approached, the light softened, casting long shadows that danced across the hills and valleys. The followers set up near the clearing, preparing to spend the night, though none could sleep in the shadow of what they had found. Questions and theories buzzed in their minds. How had the horse known where to go? Who had created this system of hidden structures and marked paths? And what other secrets might still be buried, waiting for those who were willing to follow carefully and observe closely? The rancher, sitting by the fire, looked at the horse and felt a growing sense of respect. It was no ordinary animal. Its instincts, its guidance, and its quiet authority had shaped the day's journey, revealing a story that had remained hidden for decades. That night, as the stars emerged and the wind whispered through the hills, the clearing seemed alive with memory. The rustling of leaves, the gurgling of the stream, and the occasional movement of nocturnal creatures created a sense of continuity, connecting the present to a past that had been carefully guarded. The horse stood watch, calm but alert, while the rancher and the followers drifted into uneasy rest, each dreaming of what might come next. Even in sleep, the land seemed to hold them in suspense, promising that the next day would reveal more, that the story was far from over. By morning, anticipation had only grown. The horse moved first, signaling the start of another day of exploration. The rancher followed, heart racing, knowing that they were approaching a turning point. Every discovery so far had been remarkable, but the horse's behavior suggested that something greater awaited, something that would explain the purpose of the clearing, the hidden structures, and the meticulous planning of a long-forgotten caretaker. The group moved in silence, hearts pounding, aware that they were on the edge of uncovering a revelation that could redefine their understanding of the land. Each step seemed purposeful, each gesture from the horse deliberate. The followers had begun to sense the rhythm of its movements, learning to anticipate pauses, halts, and signals. The clearing, the hidden structures, and the patterns in the terrain all began to form a larger picture, a story of survival, wisdom, and harmony between humans and animals that had endured long after the people themselves had vanished. The anticipation built with every step. The horse's guidance was more than instinct. It was a connection to a legacy, a bridge between the past and the present, and a promise of revelations yet to come. The rancher looked around at the group, their faces lit by a mixture of awe, curiosity, and cautious excitement. They had followed a wild horse through unfamiliar terrain, led to a clearing that seemed ordinary at first but now held centuries of secrets. And yet, even as they pieced together fragments of the past, the real truth remained just out of reach. The horse had guided them this far, and whatever lay ahead would demand attention, care, and understanding. Each follower knew they were on the edge of something extraordinary, and the horse waited patiently to reveal the next chapter. The land held its breath, the clearing glowed in morning light, and the journey that had begun with a simple chase promised discoveries that none would forget. The horse's eyes, sharp and knowing, reflected a wisdom that spoke across generations, as if saying, "There is more to see. There is more to understand. Follow closely, and you will witness what few have ever known." The cliffhanger lingered in the air, the story unfinished, the secrets waiting for those brave enough to continue, and the horse leading the way into the heart of the land's hidden truths. The morning air was crisp, carrying the scent of damp earth and wildflowers as the group followed the horse out of the clearing. Every step seemed purposeful, each movement of the animal hinting at hidden patterns in the hills. The rancher felt a thrill mixed with unease, knowing that the land held secrets, but not yet understanding the full scope. The maps and letters they had discovered the day before had revealed fragments, but the horse's behavior suggested there was more than mere structures or markings. There was a story of people and animals intertwined, a narrative hidden in plain sight. The followers split naturally into small groups, some focusing on the terrain, others examining the plants, while a few stayed close to the horse, sensing that its guidance was key to uncovering more. The rancher walked beside the animal, noting how it moved with assurance, nostrils flaring to catch every scent, ears twitching at sounds beyond human hearing. He began to consider the possibility that the horse's knowledge went beyond instinct, that it had been trained, or perhaps even chosen, to safeguard this land and its secrets. Every rustle in the underbrush, every unusual rock formation became a potential clue. One follower pointed toward a faint path, partially overgrown but distinct against the hills, and the horse changed direction, leading them along it. The path narrowed, forcing them single file, and the air felt heavier here, as if the land itself were holding its breath. Whispers circulated among the group about what might lie ahead. Some imagined hidden treasures, others believed it was the remnants of an old settlement. The rancher, however, focused on the subtle clues the horse indicated, the arrangement of stones, the tilt of fallen trees, the barely visible markers that suggested deliberate placement. This was a puzzle, and the horse was their key. As they advanced, tension began to build. The terrain became more rugged, hills steeper, and the vegetation denser. One of the younger followers stumbled, scraping a hand on a bramble, and the horse paused, waiting patiently. The rancher realized that the animal was more than a guide. It was a guardian, alert to potential dangers that humans might overlook. They continued carefully, each person aware that a misstep could lead to injury or, worse, a lost opportunity to uncover the secrets hidden in these hills. Soon, they reached a small valley where the remains of another structure emerged from the undergrowth. Unlike the first clearing, this place seemed more recent, with wooden posts still upright and the remnants of a low fence partially intact. The horse paused at the entrance, ears pricked, eyes scanning. The rancher stepped forward and noticed unusual marks on the wood scratches that could not be entirely explained by weather or animals. There was a rhythm to them, a pattern, almost as if someone had left a message. He knelt, brushing away leaves, and uncovered a set of small carvings, arrows, circles, and lines that aligned with the maps in the box. Discussion broke out among the followers, theories clashing as excitement and curiosity ran high. Some argued that the marks were territorial, perhaps left by those who had once worked the land. Others speculated they could be warnings or directions for travelers. The rancher remained focused on the horse, who stepped deliberately toward the fence, nudging a post with its muzzle. Behind the fence, a shallow pit revealed remnants of tools and containers, old but carefully preserved. The horse's insistence was clear. They were meant to see this, to understand it. As they explored the valley, tensions among the followers began to emerge. Some grew frustrated at the slow pace, eager for concrete discoveries rather than cryptic markers. Others were captivated, spending hours studying the patterns, tracing lines with fingers, and theorizing about the lives of the people who had left them. The rancher tried to mediate, emphasizing patience and observation, but he could feel the strain building. The land demanded respect and careful attention. Impulsive actions could disrupt centuries of preservation. He glanced at the horse, whose calm presence reminded everyone of the discipline required to understand the terrain. Later, the group discovered a series of hidden springs that had been carefully managed with stone channels. Water flowed steadily, clear and cool, suggesting someone had invested time and knowledge into controlling the natural resources of the land. The horse paused at each spring, allowing the followers to inspect the engineering. It became evident that this was not just a collection of structures but a deliberate system designed to sustain life, to guide animals and humans alike through the hills. The followers began to see the larger picture. The horse had led them into a network of interconnected sites, each carrying information and secrets waiting to be interpreted. One of the older members of the group speculated aloud about the horse itself, wondering whether it was a descendant of animals used by the original inhabitants to safeguard these places. The rancher considered the idea and realized that the animal's intelligence, its careful movements, and its seemingly instinctive understanding of the land could not be mere coincidence. Perhaps generations of horses had been entrusted with this task, each passing knowledge to the next in ways humans could only begin to imagine. The notion added a new layer to the mystery, deepening both respect and curiosity. As the day wore on, the sun moved lower, casting long shadows that shifted across the hills. The followers reached a narrow ravine that seemed impassable at first. The horse approached cautiously, sniffing the air, testing the footing. Then, with surprising agility, it began a careful descent, pausing at each step, demonstrating a safe route. The rancher followed, heart pounding, realizing that without the horse, they might have abandoned this path entirely. This valley, hidden and difficult to access, contained a concentration of artifacts and structures that suggested a hub of activity long ago, a place where knowledge and resources had been centralized. The tension heightened as they moved deeper into the ravine. Sounds of distant wildlife echoed off the walls, and the followers grew acutely aware of how isolated they were. Every step revealed something new: carvings in the rocks, hidden compartments under stones, and fragments of tools and containers that suggested a rich history. Each discovery brought excitement, but also questions: why had this place been abandoned? Who had built it, and for what ultimate purpose? The horse led them steadily forward, almost as if it understood that the most important secrets were still ahead. By late afternoon, they arrived at the base of a steep slope where the remnants of a larger structure emerged. Unlike any they had seen before, this one appeared deliberate in scale, with walls suggesting a communal area or central meeting place. The horse paused at the edge, nostrils flaring, eyes bright and focused. The followers sensed the significance immediately, the collective excitement mingling with a careful wariness. They were close to understanding the scope of the land's hidden network, and the sense of anticipation was almost unbearable. As they examined the site, the followers discovered evidence of careful planning, patterns of stone placement, remnants of pathways leading to concealed areas, and fragments of tools that suggested specialized work. The horse moved slowly among these artifacts, its presence calm but commanding. It was clear that this was more than a simple discovery. It was the heart of the secret, the central point of a carefully maintained network that had been hidden for generations. Every detail they uncovered only deepened the mystery, reinforcing the idea that the land had been tended with extraordinary care, and that the horse had been instrumental in maintaining its legacy. The group gathered at the edge of the slope as the sun dipped low, casting long shadows over the ruins. Questions swirled: who had built this, and why had it been abandoned? How had the horse known to lead them here? And what other secrets lay hidden beyond the slope, waiting for someone brave enough to follow? The rancher's mind raced with possibilities, trying to connect the dots between the maps, letters, structures, and the horse's deliberate guidance. Each revelation only deepened the suspense, leaving them on the edge of discovery, aware that the next step could bring answers or uncover even greater mysteries. The followers set up near the slope for the night, the horse standing watch as the stars appeared overhead. Conversations were hushed, filled with speculation and wonder. Every rustle of leaves and distant animal call seemed amplified in the quiet, reminding them how far they had ventured from the familiar. The horse's steady presence offered reassurance, its calm vigilance a reminder that they were following a guide who understood the land in ways they could not yet comprehend. Anticipation filled the night air, a tension that promised the next day would reveal even more remarkable discoveries. By dawn, the horse moved first, heading toward a barely discernible path that led further into the hills. The rancher and the followers followed closely, knowing instinctively that the journey was far from over. The deeper they ventured, the more the land revealed itself, hidden water sources, small groves, and subtle markers that spoke of centuries of human and animal collaboration. The horse's movements guided them, each pause and shift of attention pointing toward something important. Suspense built with every step. They were on the edge of uncovering a story that connected generations, animals, and the land itself, and the climax of their discovery was drawing near. The sense of urgency and anticipation weighed heavily on the group. Each person knew they had stumbled upon something extraordinary, yet the full scope remained elusive. The horse, calm and deliberate, led them ever forward, revealing secrets in stages, ensuring they understood the land's story gradually. Every footstep, every glance, and every discovery deepened the mystery, leaving everyone both exhilarated and uneasy. They were walking a path between past and present, guided by an animal whose instincts carried the weight of generations. The climax of their journey loomed, and the land held its secrets close, promising a revelation that would leave them stunned. The morning air was thick with anticipation as the group followed the horse along the narrow, winding path that disappeared into a dense stand of trees. The sunlight filtered through the branches in slanted beams, illuminating patches of moss and the occasional stone marker that hinted at secrets buried beneath the forest floor. Each follower moved cautiously, the sound of footsteps muffled by the thick carpet of leaves. The rancher, at the front beside the horse, could feel the tension tightening in his chest. Every instinct told him that they were approaching something extraordinary, though no one yet knew what form it would take. The horse slowed, ears twitching, nostrils flaring as it sniffed the air. It was an unspoken command: stop and observe. The group froze, exchanging glances, the quiet broken only by the occasional rustle of the forest and the distant call of a bird. The rancher knelt to examine the ground, noticing subtle depressions and scuffed earth that suggested recent movement. Perhaps animals or even humans had passed this way. The patterns were too deliberate to be random. He gestured to the others, pointing out the marks that seemed to align with the maps they had uncovered in the clearing. A shiver ran through him as he realized that this path had been maintained for a reason, hidden yet purposeful. As they continued, the forest opened into a small glade where the sunlight fell golden and warm. In the center, partially concealed by brambles and low branches, was an old corral, weathered but intact. The horse stepped carefully toward it, as if it recognized something familiar. The rancher's heart thumped loudly. The corral was too deliberate to have been abandoned without purpose. Wooden posts were reinforced, some with markings that matched the symbols from the letters. Every detail suggested deliberate placement, as though someone had wanted the corral to remain hidden yet accessible to those who could read the signs. One of the younger followers whispered, barely audible, "Do you think someone's still here?" The rancher shook his head slowly, unsure. He felt a strange energy in the air, as if the place remembered the presence of those who had once lived and worked here. The horse circled the corral, nostrils quivering, then stepped toward a section of the fence that seemed particularly worn. There, partially buried in the earth, was a loose plank. The animal nudged it gently with its nose, revealing a small opening, a hidden passage that led under the corral. Gasps rippled through the group as they realized the complexity of what lay before them. The horse had led them not just to the surface structure, but to a hidden interior, an intentional secret. The rancher crouched beside the opening, peering inside. The tunnel was narrow, carved from the earth, and smelled faintly of damp soil and old wood. It twisted and descended slightly, disappearing into darkness. A sense of unease swept through the group. The unknown beyond the corral was as thrilling as it was terrifying. Some followers hesitated, glancing at one another with apprehension, while others leaned in, drawn by curiosity and the thrill of discovery. The horse remained calm, almost expectant, waiting for someone to take the first step. Finally, the rancher decided. He produced a lantern and stepped into the opening, the flickering light illuminating the tunnel's rough walls. The others followed, careful to keep their footing. The tunnel stretched farther than expected, twisting and opening into a larger chamber partially carved from rock, partially supported by timber. There were signs of habitation scraps, of cloth, small tools, even the remnants of containers that had once held supplies. Whoever had built this had clearly intended it to be functional, perhaps as a refuge or storage, hidden from casual view. The realization sent a ripple of tension through the group. They were standing in a place few had seen in decades. The horse moved ahead, nostrils flaring, ears swiveling as if sensing something deeper within the chamber. The rancher followed slowly, noticing faint marks on the walls, scratches that looked like symbols or warnings. He traced them with his fingers, careful not to damage anything. Some marks matched the patterns in the maps. Others were new, revealing an even more intricate network of signs. It became clear that this place had been deliberately encoded, a hidden language designed for those who could read it. The weight of that knowledge pressed down on the group, each follower realizing the depth of the secret they had stumbled into. As they explored the chamber, the air grew cooler, heavier, carrying a faint scent of earth and decay. The walls bore not only marks but also indentations that suggested hidden compartments. One of the followers, braver than the others, pressed against a section of the wall, and it shifted slightly, revealing a cavity containing small bundles wrapped in cloth. Inside were papers and sketches, much like those found in the clearing, but more detailed plans for the surrounding hills, indications of secret water sources, and notes on animal paths. The horse whinnied softly, almost approvingly, as if acknowledging the importance of the discovery. The atmosphere became charged with anticipation. Each bundle revealed more than the last: instructions, coordinates, even references to valuable resources in the hills. The followers whispered to one another, speculation and theories buzzing in the dim light. Yet the rancher sensed a bigger picture, one that went beyond maps and plans. The horse's guidance, the carefully hidden tunnels, and the signs etched into the walls suggested a legacy of knowledge and guardianship, a connection between humans and animals that had endured far longer than any of them could comprehend. Suddenly, a subtle vibration ran through the ground, catching everyone off guard. The horse's ears pricked sharply, and it shifted its weight as if readying itself for movement. The group froze, hearts pounding. The vibration came again, faint but undeniable. Was it an animal or something else? The rancher's mind raced with possibilities, aware that whatever lay ahead might test their courage and resolve. The horse moved toward a far corner of the chamber, nudging a stone that revealed another passageway, narrower and darker. The air grew cooler, almost oppressive, as if the tunnel itself demanded respect. The followers exchanged nervous glances, some hesitating, others determined to see the mystery through. The rancher took a deep breath, signaling them to follow, the lantern casting long shadows along the rough walls. Every step felt heavier, the suspense building with each twist of the tunnel. Outside, the forest seemed distant, the sounds of birds and wind muted, leaving only the pounding of hearts and the quiet guidance of the horse. Each follower felt the tension rise, the anticipation almost unbearable. They were close to uncovering something monumental, but the nature of the revelation remained just out of reach. As they reached the end of the passage, the tunnel opened into a wider chamber, lit by faint shafts of sunlight filtering through cracks in the rock above. There, partially hidden behind fallen stones and debris, was the first hint of something extraordinary, a structure, carefully preserved with carved symbols and artifacts placed in deliberate order. The horse stepped forward, moving with a sense of purpose that made it clear this was the culmination of its guidance. The rancher felt his pulse quicken, aware that they had reached a pivotal point. Every follower leaned in, spellbound, as the horse approached the centerpiece of the chamber, a large stone slab with intricate markings. The energy in the room was electric. The markings suggested a story, a record of events, and a method of communication spanning generations. The rancher traced the symbols with his hand, feeling a connection to the people who had created them. Each line, each curve seemed to pulse with meaning, pointing to a deeper secret embedded in the landscape. The followers whispered in awe, their previous curiosity now mingled with reverence. They were standing at the heart of a mystery carefully preserved, guided to this very moment by the horse that had led them here. Outside, the wind shifted, carrying faint echoes that sounded almost like whispers through the narrow openings of the chamber. The horse tensed slightly, ears flicking, nostrils flaring. The group sensed the tension, the unspoken warning that something critical lay just beyond this discovery. The rancher felt a surge of anticipation. The climax of the journey, the moment that would tie together the land, the horse, and the hidden knowledge, was approaching. And yet, Just as the chamber revealed its secrets, it also hinted at something more: a danger, a test, or an even deeper revelation that would leave them stunned. The followers stood in hushed silence, aware that the next step would determine what they uncovered. The horse, calm but insistent, shifted its stance, signaling that the final phase of this journey was near. The rancher took a deep breath, heart pounding, as he prepared to follow the animal into the unknown. Every shadow, every symbol, and every subtle movement carried weight, each promising answers or challenges that none could yet predict. The cliffhanger hung in the air like the weight of the mountains themselves. The horse, steady and knowing, had led them to the very edge of revelation, and the land seemed to hold its secrets in silent anticipation. The followers, the rancher, and even the horse stood poised on the brink of discovery, the tension almost unbearable, as the next moment promised to transform their understanding of the land forever. The horse waited at the edge of the chamber, its dark eyes glinting in the weak shafts of sunlight that spilled through the cracks above. The followers and the rancher hesitated, hearts pounding, aware that this moment was the culmination of everything the horse had guided them to. Slowly, the rancher stepped forward, the lantern held high, casting a circle of light over the stone slab that had first drawn their attention. Every carving, every line seemed to pulse with significance, revealing the hidden story of the land and those who had tended it long before any of them had set foot here. As the light swept across the markings, patterns became clear. The lines traced a map of the hills, valleys, and springs, showing paths that connected hidden resources and safe havens. There were references to people who had worked alongside animals, relying on their instincts to maintain the land and keep knowledge alive. The horse had not just led them physically, but symbolically, embodying the connection between past and present. The rancher felt a shiver run down his spine as he traced the carvings, realizing that generations of careful planning had been entrusted to animals like the one before him. One of the followers noticed a section of the stone that was smoother, polished, almost like a door. They pressed against it, and to their astonishment, the stone shifted, revealing a small compartment beneath. Inside lay bundles of parchment and small wooden boxes, each containing tools, notes, and records detailing how the land had once been managed. There were instructions for crop rotation, water distribution, and even methods for training animals to help with farming and transport. The realization struck them all: this chamber had been a central hub for preserving knowledge, and the horse had guided them here to ensure that the secrets were not lost. The rancher carefully removed one of the parchments and unrolled it. The diagrams depicted the exact positions of hidden springs, fences, and pastures, with annotations in a hand that was precise but filled with care. Each detail was meant to sustain life, to maintain balance with the land. The followers murmured among themselves, awe spreading like wildfire. They were witnessing something extraordinary, a tangible link to the past that had survived decades of neglect and nature's slow reclaiming. The horse moved among them, calm, almost proud, as if it understood that its role had been fulfilled in guiding them to this discovery. Yet, as the excitement grew, a new tension surfaced. Some of the followers worried about the responsibility that came with this knowledge. Who would care for these lands now? How would they preserve what had been uncovered without repeating the mistakes of the past? The rancher listened, understanding their concern, and realized that the journey had been more than a discovery; it was a test of stewardship. The horse had led them to the past not merely to marvel at it, but to remind them that the legacy required care, respect, and dedication. The horse whinnied softly and stepped toward a corner of the chamber where the roof sloped low. There, partially hidden under rubble, was a small bundle, heavier than the rest. The rancher knelt, brushing away the debris, and found an intricately carved box. Inside, he discovered a note and a small key. The note, written long ago, explained that the box contained the means to access the final hidden site, a place of refuge and storage that had been central to sustaining life across the hills. The key was symbolic, representing the trust passed from the past to the present, and the responsibility that now rested on their shoulders. The horse nudged the rancher gently, urging him to continue the path. With the box and key in hand, the group followed the horse through the narrow tunnel that led upward, the air growing warmer as they approached daylight. Emerging into a small clearing, they saw a hidden grove of trees and a natural spring, surrounded by structures that had remained untouched by time. Wooden fences enclosed pastures, and carefully built stone channels directed water to troughs and small gardens. The horse moved freely, demonstrating which areas had been maintained for animals, which for crops, and which served as observation points. It was as if the land had waited all these years for someone who could understand and respect its secrets. The rancher felt a wave of gratitude wash over him. Here was the culmination of generations of effort, knowledge preserved through time, and an animal that had led them to it all. The followers moved with quiet reverence, inspecting the structures, water sources, and hidden paths. Every detail reflected careful planning, a symbiosis between humans and animals that had allowed life to flourish even in the most challenging conditions. The horse continued to guide them, pausing now and then to ensure they understood the significance of each element. As the sun climbed higher, the group began to consider how they would honor the legacy before them. The older followers suggested documenting the sites, creating maps and notes to preserve the knowledge for future generations. Younger members discussed the possibility of returning periodically to maintain the land, respecting the delicate balance the original caretakers had established. The rancher realized that their journey had not only uncovered a hidden network, but also forged a renewed connection with the land responsibility that could now pass into their hands. The horse, sensing that its work had reached a natural pause, lay down near the spring, watching as the humans explored and planned. Its calm presence reinforced the lesson that had guided them all. Knowledge without care could be lost, but with respect and attention, it could endure. The group gathered near the center of the grove, reflecting on the journey that had brought them here, the mysteries they had uncovered, and the realization that the horse had been more than a guide. It had been a bridge between past and present. Later in the afternoon, the rancher took a moment to walk the perimeter alone, considering what they had learned. The signs etched in the stone, the hidden tunnels, the network of springs and pastures, all of it painted a picture of a society that had valued sustainability, foresight, and cooperation between humans and animals. The horse watched him quietly, and he felt a sense of peace. The initial thrill of discovery had given way to understanding, and he knew that this land, once abandoned and forgotten, now had a chance to thrive again. As twilight approached, the group lit a small fire near the central clearing. Shadows danced among the trees, the soft glow highlighting the careful arrangements of stone and wood. Conversations were subdued but filled with warmth and purpose. They spoke of plans to document and protect the site, to honor the wisdom they had uncovered, and to ensure the horse's guidance would not be forgotten. There was laughter, cautious but genuine, as they celebrated not just the discoveries but the unity that had formed among them in pursuit of this shared journey. The horse lay beside the fire, ears twitching at each sound, eyes calm and observant. It had led them through hidden paths, tunnels, and chambers, showing them the secrets of the land without ever faltering. Now, as the group rested, it seemed to understand that its task was complete. The rancher approached and placed a hand gently on its mane, feeling the strength and intelligence of the animal that had carried them to the heart of the mystery. For a long moment, man and horse shared a quiet understanding, the culmination of trust, respect, and shared discovery. By nightfall, the grove seemed to breathe with life. Shadows mingling with starlight, water trickling softly through channels, and the distant hills standing sentinel. The group huddled together, reflecting on how far they had come from curiosity and anticipation to awe and comprehension. The horse rested among them, a silent guardian, a reminder that the past and present were connected in ways that required patience, care, and courage. The rancher realized that the true lesson was not merely the discovery itself, but the journey, the respect for the land, and the partnership between humans and animals that had endured for generations. In the early hours of the next day, the followers prepared to leave, carrying documentation and supplies to preserve what they had found. The horse rose, stretching its massive frame, and followed them partway down the hill, ensuring that they safely navigated the paths it had led them on. The rancher paused at the edge of the grove, looking back at the hidden valley, the water sources, the carved stones, and the tunnels. He felt a sense of fulfillment, knowing that this land, once abandoned and silent, now had stewards who understood its value. As they descended into the wider valley below, the rancher glanced at the horse one last time. Its dark eyes met his, calm and knowing, as if to say the story was not theirs to control, but theirs to respect. And with that, the horse turned back toward the grove, disappearing among the trees, leaving the group with the knowledge, the responsibility and the wonder of what they had discovered. The journey had begun with a curious chase after a wild animal, but it had ended with a revelation about legacy, trust, and the enduring bond between humans and the creatures who shared the land with them. The group returned to the ranch with a renewed sense of purpose. They documented the maps, shared their findings, and began careful work to maintain the hidden sites. The story of the horse, the tunnels, and the hidden network spread among nearby communities, inspiring respect for the land and a renewed commitment to preservation. But the memory of the journey remained most vivid in their hearts, the chase, the suspense, and the revelation that some secrets are only revealed to those willing to follow patiently, with trust and humility. And so the land, once forgotten and abandoned, regained life not through force or haste, but through patience, observation, and the guidance of a creature who understood the meaning of stewardship. The horse had led them to knowledge, but it had also taught a lesson that would endure far longer than any discovery, that respect, care, and connection are the truest legacies we leave behind. The story ended, but the lesson remained, echoing through the valleys, whispering along the water channels, and settling in the hearts of those who had followed the horse to the edge of mystery and beyond.